Welcome back to Stories of Scale, my interview series with scaling CEOs. Today, I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Brad Krauskopf, who's the CEO and founder of Hub Australia. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. Great to see you and look forward to having a chat.
Yeah, my pleasure. And that's insane. So listen, let's just start quickly. What's your origin story? How did you get to where you are today? And tell us a little bit about the business.
Yeah, so we've always been self-employed. I guess the origin very much is my family was in the hospitality industry. I distinctly remember in my 20s saying no to the family hospitality business because I thought you'd be crazy to do a business with such high capex and fixed costs and also 24/7. Of course, fast forward 20 years later, I have ended up in a hospitality business, only it's workspace hospitality. I managed to avoid the weekends, but I've still got the really high fixed costs and capex. And ultimately, we're focused on how do you create that customer experience every day that keeps people coming back. But yeah,
Uh, Tell us a bit more about the business then. So you're a service to office provider, is that what it is?
yeah, so I guess the version that people like this iteration, and certainly serviced offices have been around for 40 years. I think WeWork managed to convince the world that they'd invented the model, but certainly there was serviced offices around long before. And the business model, by and large, of co-working and what is now known either as flex office or co-working, which encompasses the serviced offices of old. Hub sits squarely there. We've almost seen that flex offices have become a little bit like the hotel industry. You've got 5-star operators, you've got 3-star operators, you've got boutique operators, even bed and breakfast and national and international chains. And it's generally really helpful to understand that you can pick lots of different types of flex offices to ultimately suit your business.
And where do you fit in?
Hub sits at the premium end of the market, really focused on hospitality. So, for instance, there's a cafe. We run food and beverage at every one of the locations. We've got hotel style amenity at all the locations. And most of the customers that come to us are scaling businesses. They've got 10 people, 20 people. They're scaling fast. And at the end of the day, the thing that we solve for them is how to attract and retain the best talent. So it's not about a cheap desk. It's not about something for freelancers or not for profits. Most of the organizations that come to Hub, they're after outsourcing their workspace requirements to us because ultimately they're running their own business. They want us to take care of that. And then where they're positioning, where they've decided to place their business is at a flex operator, which is able to really help them with attracting and retaining the best talent, because all of our customers then go and compete with the big corporates and your Googles and what forth on attracting the talent away from them.
Okay. And where are you? Where are your hubs?
We're across Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Canberra. And then come April of this year, we'll also be in Perth. So we'll end up being the only premium national operator. And we're certainly seeing that means that scaling businesses and corporate businesses, they come to us looking for a solution that helps them nationally, or at least across multiple cities.
That leads into my next question. So what are you currently working on? What exciting projects or goals are you focused on now?
Look, certainly moving into Perth this year, we started the business back in 2011, and there always was the ambition of being a national business. And indeed, I certainly would have thought that we would have been in Perth many years ago, but the pandemic happened and the way that people worked completely changed. And I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about that. But finally getting to Perth is a really big thing. The other one is finally feeling like post-pandemic that we actually feel like we know enough about where the workspace market is heading that we can really focus on the customer experience that we want to provide. The last 5 years, it's been constant pivoting, constant refresh of the product, and by and large, just trying to figure out where is the workplace going. So that means you're spending a lot of your time trying to figure out where you're going. Now we actually want to just get really damn good at the service that we're offering and really differentiate ourselves from the competition. So that's an exciting one. The final one that I'll mention is I think that there's just going to be a lot of consolidation and merging of, for instance, what we do with what landlords do. And it's going to be this exciting period where people are not wondering whether flex and co-working is still going to be around. Everybody knows that it's still going to be around. And the general sense is that a larger proportion of people's workspace requirements will be with flexible operators, because it just makes sense. Like trying to sign a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease when you don't know where the business or indeed the world's going to be in 3 years is really hard. So the model makes sense. And that just has created a lot of really great opportunities where we can work with landlords and we can work with enterprise to work out how we service that part of their workspace requirements.
Yeah, that makes enormous sense. I'm just reading a little bit about what's happening in Washington at the moment. And if you're a landlord there right now, you'd have less hair than me.
You would. But look, certainly in Australia, we've got an interesting mix. Certainly, we believe that more days than pre-pandemic will be worked at home. We don't see everybody getting back to the office 5 days a week, but nor do we see that people even want to work from home most of the time. It would be good to see the government in Australia getting people back to their offices, like having government out of the CBD, particularly in Victoria. It's not helpful. It's not helpful for the CBDs. And overall, it would certainly be good if there was some momentum from the government to be getting their workforces back into the CBD for some of the time.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And I mentor and coach CEOs and founder business owners. And yeah, we seem to be settling on this concept of 2 or 3 days in the office a week, and 2 or 3 days working from home. My clients are certainly talking, they want the collaboration, they want the ability to bring teams together, but they're not insisting on 5 days. It's certainly in the service industries.
Yeah, I guess when an Amazon says back to the office, or when an Atlassian says you don't ever have to come to the office, we've got to realize that they're the exceptions to the rule. They've got very loud voices, so they end up in the newspapers. But for most companies and most of their teams, working every day from the office or every day from home is actually not possible, and is also not going to get the most productive outcome for anyone. It's somewhere in between.
That's right. Hey, listen, can we jump from business to personal for a moment? What are your daily habits and routines? What's a typical day look like for you?
Sure. So up at 5:30, occasionally, and to be honest, this morning I couldn't quite get out of bed at 5:30, but I do know that when I don't get out of bed at 5:30, I miss what is one of my most important part of the day, which is 5:30 to 7 a.m. It's like it's me time. It's hopefully it's gym, like some exercise. A new one this year is to try and read 10 pages of a book in the morning, a quick meditation, having my breakfast, understanding what the day is ahead. But if I can do that 5:30 to 7 when it's only me up in the house, I'm set up for success for the day. A couple of other ones, during the day, just trying to get a couple of quick walk around the block, or a quick couple of 5-minute breathing exercise, trying to eat 5 times a day. So a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, a morning tea and an afternoon tea, and just trying to do those meals at a relatively consistent time. Definitely like a consistent schedule actually gives me freedom to do things, as opposed to takes the freedom away, is what I find. But as with all entrepreneurs, sometimes there's your plan and then somebody else comes along and tells you what it's really going to be. But that's my idea.
My partner, I think he said the plan's only good until you get smacked in the face.
Exactly. Another one that I would really love to nail, and which I'm trying to, is essentially scheduling in the times that you do emails. Look, I'm up to Feb 6th and I haven't put email back on my phone yet. We'll see how we go. But essentially how my business operates is, if someone needs me, I am available, but we know that's not via email. So henceforth, why do I have it on my phone? I'm going to try for it.
That's a good one. So you mentioned earlier your daughter. So how do you balance your personal life and the demands of leadership and running a business that's across multiple time zones?
Yeah. So look, so I don't tell you about all of the things that I try and do really well, like my 5:30 wake up thing. My single biggest challenge point, the one that I've always had trouble with, is that transition after work to home. And like the amount of times that I've got home and I'm not ready to play with my Suki, my daughter, or I've brought work home with me. That's a challenge point. I've not mastered it yet. I've found that if I do start earlier, it's like you try and finish earlier. And if I can build in a gap of 15 minutes to 30 minutes before I get home, that is incredibly helpful. Another one of trying to actually just put the phone and put all of the screens like actually not in the room with when I'm there. And then the final one is trying to do time with Suki on the weekends. But at the end of the day, even with the best laid plans, it's sometimes tricky during the week. But if I can put aside time on the weekend, then it's helpful.
It's an interesting question. And I've been retired a couple of times now, but I set this business up in 2017 to mentor business owners. And one of the decisions, and a bit of background, I have a 11-year-old and a 10-year-old, and
Yep.
we were blessed to adopt them. And yeah, there's like I know you get it, the center of your life. But one of the decisions I took, and it's because I've got a business that like I have, I won't take meetings before 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
I get up, I go to the gym, I come home, I get the kids out of bed, I have breakfast with them, make them lunch, drive them to school. I live in Barrel, which is a regional town, so everything's close. And then a schedule between 3:15 and 4 o'clock. That's always blanked out because that's the time the kids get home from school, and I have a conversation with them, and just make sure they're okay. And to me, they're my priorities, which is I'm blessed that I have the ability to have those priorities and I work from home. But it's scheduling those important things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're making. That's right.
A couple other just quick ones to mention there. Try never finish a holiday without having the next one booked. I've found is incredibly helpful. I sometimes like having the next two booked, although that sometimes doesn't completely work out. Another one that I'm trying at the start of this year is I'm trying to do my to-do list for tomorrow at the end of the day rather than in the morning. So I do it for the next day, and it's a physical diary as well. And then another one is across the organization, having just a really solid expectations of what communications you use for what and when. And that's not just for me, it's for across the organization. Again, it just really helps people knowing what they need to be paying attention to, and actually more importantly, what they don't need to be paying attention to, because they can know that they can leave it.
They're really good points. Can we check? I'm going to change direction a bit again. A major failure or a major challenge that you've run up against. Can you share a time and tell us how you got over it or solved it?
Yeah, sure. Look, way back in Hub, we very quickly went into state before we'd figured out how to do the one location. I wish I could have that way over again. And quite frankly, the way that we solved it is we scrambled for years to catch up. And so I would have loved to have done that one differently. Another one is, look, I generally feel like that time horizon that you can plan a business is shrinking. I think we talked before, we were talking about the good old Jim Collins BHAG, and generally speaking, that was, I think, a 10 to 25 year goal. And I completely think that it's a 3 to 5 year goal at best, and maybe not even that. And that's not just because it's hard to deal with your business out that long, but you don't know about all of the other things that are going to happen outside of your business. So it almost makes it a fruitless exercise. And I will get to the answer on your question there. When I held on to a culture or a way of doing things or a leadership team or what forth, and just felt like, oh, they'll change or we'll evolve or we'll adapt to this new business, when I should have just let go. the culture and changes in your business and then the business and then the industry in which we operate, you can't fight it, particularly if we're the smaller businesses. What you need to do is to figure out how to navigate it. And whenever I've held on to a team out of loyalty or because I thought it was the right thing, or I stuck with something out of stubbornness, it's backfired on me. So yeah, just
There are so many, like there's an hour and a half of a conversation if we had the time.
yeah,
And you're absolutely right. It's in the last couple of weeks, I've had one client had the wrong person in the role, a senior role, and he'd been putting off making the decision for 6 months. And as I said to him, no one has ever regretted letting someone go too late. I did a blog the other day about solve one big thing every week, and you solve 50 things a year. Steve Jobs' classic line, strategy is all about what you say no to. There's another conversation for us.
Yeah. And look, with the pandemic, as in, if you're a flex co-working operator in 2020, you were going out of business. Like you actually didn't think there was a way of battling through it. But fortunately, actually, our business model proved far more resilient than any operators, and certainly the wider media thought it would. Most did get through, but the speed at which I needed to adapt on the other side of the pandemic, that was the bit where I feel like over the last 2 years, there was certainly things that I could have done quicker.
Right.
And that's been it's almost like the last 2 years were harder than the 20 to 22 because it was so uncertain as to how things would end up playing out.
That's the insight. So tell me, what's the best piece of advice you've received? The one that's had the most significant impact on your life or your business? And can you tell me who gave it to you?
Look, I actually can't remember who the person was, but this is also a pretty general one, and I don't mean to provide a general answer. It's more just that it's proven right to me so many times. You're always going to need more time and money than you think you do. And I guess I share it in terms of, I wish I had something that you'd never heard before, but it's just true. And then linked with that, and also with our comment before on the timelines just getting shorter and shorter, I feel like if you think that you just don't have 3 years to figure out your business model and how to solve your cash burn anymore, because in that longer time, it'll be a different problem that you're trying to solve for. So there's been periods where I've essentially let the business go thinking that I would get to the cash flow positive, or I'd get to X milestone. But you need to be getting to those milestones in 1 month, in 6 months, and 18 months, because by the time you get 3 years out, the rules of the game have changed and you're actually playing a different game.
Yeah, I think that totally agree. And I think that fits in with your comment about the shrinking of things like BHAGs in 3 years. Like I met all my clients, we focus on 3 years out, and then we do quarterly sprints. And particularly with technology changing, there's so much there. And one of the key things we talk about a lot is if we're going to make an investment, most investments should be able to pay themselves back within 3 months. And that's the goal that we're heading towards.
Interesting.
This may fit in with the last question, but what do you reckon your biggest learning as a business owner has been?
Right people on the bus in the right seat at the right time. Yeah. That's an easy question. Easy one. Yeah. And it's also the key as a CEO, it's also the key to, both your own sanity as well. In many cases, most founders end up being they're founder CEOs, they're not professional CEOs. And the quicker you can have a professional management team in place, the better for your team as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Leads perfectly into segues into my next question. What do you reckon is the most important characteristic of a great leadership team?
Trust, and the ability to and linked to that, the outcome of that is being able to divide and conquer. I actively had created a culture where everybody was involved in everything, and that worked until it didn't. And honestly, it's taken us years because it's like a DNA kind of thing. It's taken years to get to the point where the leadership team all has their different roles and responsibility. We come together to solve things that require the cross-team collaboration. But having that ability to know that, look, that's with them, that's just critical.
Yeah, no, yes, it's absolutely right. It's one of the things I speak to my clients a lot about. It's actually, and on a number of those points, founder CEOs, they're not necessarily trained to be a CEO, and they're not necessarily, yeah, that's not necessarily their unique ability, the thing that they're good at or they love doing. And it's also about getting that life back. You get so immersed into it. If you can build a self-managing leadership team that can work without you, that's how your comment about the planning holidays in advance. It's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Resources or tools you recommend? Books, podcasts,
Yeah,
tools that have
sure.
been game changers for you?
I'm going to answer this one with some non-business, some non-typical ones, which I think delved nicely into overall how you manage your personal life as well for your business success. A couple of books that I've read really recently: Breath by James Nestor, like breath as in breathing, amazing. The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, and Stolen Focus by Johan Hari.
Okay.
Very good. Like the stolen focus is just a really good insight into, yeah, why you need to manage that phone and those notifications and what forth. And then on the podcast side of things, I always found it hard to be listening regularly to podcasts, but so one that has been super enlightening, The Imperfects.
Okay.
And it's actually great hearing some Australian accents on the pod. It's a couple of Australians, and it just focuses on a lot of things that very much outside of the work side of things, and I've really enjoyed it.
If I can throw one back at you, How Other Dads Dad.
Ooh, okay.
So this is from Lego Masters, Hamish Black.
Oh
And
yeah.
um, he's done, I think he's in season 3, but he interviews people about how they dad and some unbelievable learnings.
Okay. All right. I'm jotting that one down. Let's.
It's the first one he did with Rob Stitch, who of course produced The Castle and all of that. And surprisingly enough, the host of The Block, what's his name? I forgot. Scott Cam.
Okay.
Amazing lessons on left field lessons on how to be a dad.
Okay. Great. Good one.
Really worth looking at. Last two. Any parting words of advice for business owners looking to grow and scale?
Oh, it is a journey worth doing, is what I think. But you really got to make your own choice on how you get there. Like, for instance, the stage of business that you're operating now, you might not be, you running the business that you previously ran is probably not for you now. And you know, if you don't match it up with where you're at in your life, it usually doesn't end. And then the other one that I've seen, which again is quite linked with that, is lining up the market opportunity with the funding with the right team. It's almost like your job is getting enough things in alignment at the right time is your job as the founder and CEO, because you're not in control of most things. So it's just, how do I have enough things aligned at the right time is just so important.
Yeah, and the timing piece is absolutely the spot on. Last one, any offers to include that you'd like to offer to any listeners out there?
Oh, look, absolutely. There's so many different workspaces you can choose for your business. There's lots of different operators out there. Come and actually try different flex workspaces, because they're not about just the desk. They're actually about how can we help you create a culture that helps you grow your business. People do want to be back into the office, and people are social. And if you can figure out how to align an office that ultimately the point of it all is attracting and retaining your talent, you'll actually find it really benefit your business. So my invitation is to book a tour in a hub and check it out to see how it can work for your team.
And yeah, Brett, I'm going to reinforce that a bit. I mentioned to you earlier, I've been in a number of, I'll call them service officers in the last couple of weeks with my clients. And from a client who has grown from 6 to 11 staff in the last year, from another client who's grown from 9 through to 66 in the last 3 years. And that ability to adapt their business using services like yours, and just the buzz around the offices is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a critical part.
It is. Okay, listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you for the opportunity, and thanks all for listening.
I look forward to catching up when you're next up my way.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Brad.